What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's some of my final thoughts ahead of the Gameweek 38 deadline. The final thoughts video of the season. I'm going to go through all the key press conference information, talk about benching headaches, differentials, captaincy, answer some of your questions as well. So there's lots in this video. Let's get into it. So let's start with Newcastle. We've all been waiting for an update on Alexander Isak. This is what Eddie Howe said. Alex is doing okay, hasn't trained with us yet, but has made good progress. So as of Friday, hasn't trained with the Newcastle team. The next few days will be crucial to his availability for the weekend. There is a chance we will only play him if he's fit to contribute, and I think they showed that last week. Like, from the remaining 2 games, they only really needed a win to secure Champions League, but they weren't willing to take a risk on him last week, which means they may genuinely not be prepared to do that this week either. They can still get Champions League without winning, but obviously it's in their hands. If they win, then it's done. They will definitely play Champions League next year. We will leave the decision on Alex until tomorrow. So it's annoying for FPL because he hasn't been ruled out, but he's not exactly super positive either. I've still got this feeling deep down that he will start, but it's not really based on anything. I don't have any inside information, and he might simply just not play. So I think at this stage, if you've got no other injuries to worry about, I think it's fair to say Isak probably has to be your priority to transfer out. I wouldn't necessarily do it for a hit. I think in that case, especially if you've got someone on the bench that can come on, I would just play Isak and hope for the best. But if you've got a spare transfer, if we don't get any more news ahead of the deadline, I think he's got to be sold because there is a chance that he won't play. If you're more confident in his minutes, then obviously keep him and concentrate your moves elsewhere. But all we know is he missed last week and he's still a doubt going into this weekend. And if we believe Eddie Howe, he hasn't trained up until Friday. So he's kind of got to convince them that he's okay tomorrow. Now, just to reiterate, it was a minor groin problem. So perhaps it's a case of if he gets up on Saturday and Sunday and he doesn't feel any pain, they will just play him. But it's all kind of guesswork. So I think it's okay to keep him, and I wouldn't take a hit. But if the rest of the squad is looking okay, and you've got a spare transfer, I don't see why you wouldn't get rid of him. Worth noting as well, all the games are on at the same time on Sunday, so there is a chance, more than normal, that we will get team news ahead of the deadline. So if you can wait, obviously do that. But if you can't, obviously make your decision based on the info we've got. In terms of top options to bring in, Evan Nielsen is definitely up there. Welbeck, who we're going to talk about later. Watkins is great too. On Trippier, Kieran hasn't trained with us yet, but he has a chance in the next couple of days to build up his load. We will see on his availability. The reason I mention that is because at the moment, Murphy, Barnes and Gordon are all starting. If Trippier comes back, that might not be the case, but I'm not convinced that Trippier is going to play. And I think they've done okay, even though they lost to Arsenal, with the setup they've gone with. So I think if you've got Murphy, Gordon and Barnes, at the moment, again, based on current info, I would be expecting them all to start again with Trippier not in the 11. So for Liverpool, Arne Slot was asked about what Trent's involvement might look like at the weekend, because the last time he was brought on as a sub, he got booed. And in the last game, he wasn't brought off the bench at all. Slot said he hasn't decided on his game time yet. He said, but I think this should be a day that everybody is going to enjoy. One of my players has been Trent, so he definitely deserves to be there. So I think Trent's definitely going to be in the squad. I don't think there's any doubts about that. It's just whether or not he starts. And the reason this is important, because some of you will have Connor Bradley. My prediction will be that Connor Bradley will start and Trent will come off the bench again. I don't believe that Slot is going to give Trent 0 minutes on his final home game, despite the booing that happened last time at Anfield. So I think Trent will get game time, but it will be off the bench. And by the way, there's this quote going around that I think started from Fabrizio Romano about Slot saying he's off anyway, so why not just leave him out? He never said that, right? I've seen the press conference. He never said anything close to that. He did mention Xabi Alonso, but he was joking around, and he was talking about something that happened in pre-season in terms of a conversation. So just completely ignore that. Slot never said he was going to leave Trent out. He basically said what I've just gone through. So I think Connor Bradley will start. If, by the way, we get a leak that Trent starts, massive differential for the final day. The only thing you've got to be aware of, which whatever one of them is in the 11, Bradley or Trent, they're probably getting subbed early. Preferably, if you're an owner of either of them, after the 60th minute, and that's probably what will happen. But I guess there is a small chance they go off before. But if you've got Bradley in your team right now, I wouldn't buy him, by the way, for Game Week 38. But if you've got him in your squad, he'd probably be in my 11 for Game Week 38. For Arsenal, it's now been officially confirmed that Timber is out for Game Week 38, and so is Saliba. So if you're sat there with Saliba in your squad, hoping that he's going to play against Southampton, that's not going to happen. In terms of possible rotation for Arsenal, Arteta said there's motivation because you want to have as many points as possible. We still want to achieve the best defensive record, and Raya is still up for the Golden Glove as well. So to me, that sounds like for the most part, it's going to be a fairly full-strength team for Arsenal, at least from the players that are available. So I would expect the back four to be Ben White right back, Calafiori and Kivior as the centre-backs, and then probably Lewis Skelly, but maybe someone like Zinchenko could play left-back. So if you're looking at an Arsenal defender, I think Ben White or Calafiori is where I would look at in terms of buying new. And any worries over whether they can keep a clean sheet or they're going to be attacking and stuff like that, I don't think there's too much to worry about. Is it going to be the same intensity in a game that doesn't matter? No, but it does sound like they're going to go pretty much with their first choice 11 from the players that are available, and it's an amazing fixture. So I would expect Saka to start on the right. I think the number 9 position is difficult to call, because Havertz is obviously back now. Merino can play there. Trossard could play there as well. If I wanted to go for an attacker outside of Saka, it would probably be Martinelli or Odegaard. Maybe even Declan Rice, but probably one of the other two. As for the rest of the team news, João Pedro and Ruta will not be in the Brighton squad for Game Week 38. Ruta is injured and João Pedro is a bit of a personal thing. Apparently there was a disagreement in training, which is why he missed the last game. He's also going to miss Game Week 38 as well. Man City, everybody is fit apart from John Stones. I know people are going to have questions about whether De Bruyne will start, Marmoush. My guess is that De Bruyne, Marmoush and Haaland will all start together again, but I can never guarantee that, right? So if you've got a spare transfer and you want to remove Marmoush or De Bruyne, fair enough, but I think it's absolutely fine to keep them. I probably wouldn't buy either for Game Week 38. Jamie Vardy won't be in the Leicester squad. We already know that. He said his goodbyes in Game Week 37, and what a send-off it was as well. Iraola, not team news, but he said it's very important to finish in the top 10. That's for Bournemouth. So for anyone that was thinking there might be more rotation than normal for Bournemouth, that doesn't look like it's going to be the case. So I would expect all of Evan Nilsson, Semenyo and probably Kluivert to start as well. Same as Kirkes at left back, etc. Murillo for Forest hasn't trained all week due to a twisted ankle. We don't know whether he's going to be available or not. He does seem like the kind of player that will do everything possible to be in that 11. And obviously Forest are chasing Champions League as well. So presumably he probably will play or is more likely to. But the fact that he hasn't trained all week is a worry. So if you're relying on Murillo, then maybe if you've got the spare transfer, look to shift him to a different defender instead. Branthwaite for Everton is out for Game Week 38. So if Isak is fit and available to play, he'll be up against an Everton team with nothing to play for. They'll be away from home. They don't have Tarkowski or Branthwaite. And then Strand Larsen is a doubt, not a whatever I've spelt there, for Game Week 38, which makes me think it's more likely for Cunha to start that game. Not a guarantee, but more likely than I probably thought before we got that news. So for the final time this season, I'm going to go through my predictions for the upcoming game week as part of the Premier League Pick'em game over on Sleeper. And it's not too late to join my league by using the link in the description below or scanning the QR code on screen. Whoever gets the most predictions correct this week will win a £50 Amazon voucher. And because there's no deadline stream next week, I'll do the draw for that on Sunday's Knee Jerk stream. So let's start off with a few easy predictions for Game Week 38. So Bournemouth to beat Leicester at home and West Ham to beat Ipswich away. I wouldn't be completely surprised if Ipswich get some points from that game, but I think Jarrod Bowen and co will have enough there to get the win. Fulham versus Man City is tough. Obviously, Man City still got Champions League to try and secure. Fulham's defensive numbers for the season have actually been pretty good. I'm going to go for a draw there. I think Man City getting the win against Bournemouth, a draw in the final week will be enough. And that is that. Liverpool to beat Palace. I think there will be some rotation from Palace and less so from Liverpool. And because it's going to be, you know, the game where they get the trophy, it's going to be a party atmosphere. I think they will win that. Newcastle to beat Everton, whether Isak plays or not. Man United versus Villa. Have Man United got any fight left in them after that final? I'm not so sure. I'm going to give them a draw, but it probably should be Aston Villa. Forest Chelsea, I'm going to go for a draw as well. And then Brighton to beat Spurs because it's just going to have been a massive party for Spurs since Wednesday. Arsenal to beat Southampton. And then Wolves versus Brentford is tricky. I'm going to go for a draw there. I think that game's going to have quite a few goals as well. That's all you have to do. Whoever gets the most predictions in the Let's Talk FPL League will win that £50 Amazon voucher. If there's a tie where more than one of you have the correct predictions, or the top predictions I should say, I'll do the live draw on the Knee Jerk stream on Sunday. Use the link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen to join the league and get your predictions in. So let's talk about captaincy for the final game week. I think the top 3 to 4 options are fairly clear. Number 1 for me is Salah, and the key reason for that is he's chasing this record. And again, as I mentioned on a video the other day, I don't necessarily think that means he'll perform miles better than usual, but I think it means he definitely starts and he's probably going to play 90 minutes once again. And I think there will be some consideration from his teammates about getting him the ball if possible. We have seen that before on some occasions when players are chasing records in the final game, that players will look for them more. So I think because of that and because of his minutes, he has to be number 1 for me. He is going to be the most popular captain this week. If you're looking for a differential, do not captain Salah. The reason I've gone Saka in second place is because I'm not quite as convinced about his minutes. I do think he'll start, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was subbed on like 60, 65, 70 minutes. And that may well be enough against a team like Southampton. But with Salah, you've got him up against a Palace team who are probably going to rotate a little bit themselves. And he's probably going to go and play 90. So that's why I've got Salah ahead. Then Evan-Nielsen against Leicester at home. I think based on what Iraola said, there's not going to be a huge amount of rotation. His minutes look pretty good right now. Semenyo missed a game recently. Kluivert missed a game, subbed on at halftime, subbed off at halftime in the next game. I wouldn't go there. I think goal threat-wise, Evan-Nielsen's the best from that team. And then Bowen's obviously been incredible against Ipswich away. You could argue because Bowen's a midfielder, he should be ahead of Evan-Nielsen. That call is quite close. If you're not going for Salah or Saka, it's probably between one of Evan-Nielsen or Bowen. But I've got Evan-Nielsen slightly ahead. His goal threat is better, and he's got the home fixture. And then I've put Haaland and Mbeumo at the bottom. That's if you want to go differential. Mbeumo is quite highly owned, but I don't see many people captaining him. And I quite like that Wolves away game for goals, I think, for both teams, to be honest with you. And then Haaland is more a pick, a bit like Palmer at the moment, where you know what he is capable of, but we're just not really seeing it. We know City are going to go full strength, whatever that means to Pep Guardiola, because they need to go and get a result to confirm Champions League. We know Haaland's probably going to play 90 minutes. Is he capable of getting 2 or 3 goals against Fulham? Yes. But honestly, I don't know how much money I would put on it right now. That is for someone that's looking for a true differential going into 38. And there's obviously different levels of how differential a player is. So Saka is going to be more of a differential captain than Salah. But Haaland's going to be even more than that, right? Because hardly anyone owns him. And those people that do are probably a little bit wary about captaining him. So he's another level up in terms of differential status again. But that is more what he has done in the past, not what he's doing right now. But for me, I think if you're just holding rank, or you just want to pick the player that's going to score the most points, you don't care about what everyone else is going to do, I think it's Salah at this point. So I've had a lot of questions this week about whether this player is worth a punt. Should I go for that player as a bit of a differential? So I thought I would just put a list together of players who I think will have quite low ownership going into Game Week 38 that are worth a bit of a punt. So at the top, I've got Brighton attackers against Spurs. We know that Spurs have won the Europa League. Congratulations to them. There's going to be a lot of celebrations, as we've already seen the videos going around on social media. There will be rotation in that match. Yes, Spurs won't want to finish 17th. They'll want to try and get 16th and hope that Man United lose. But who is going to be betting on a Spurs win in that game? I think most people are expecting Brighton to do well, even though it's an away game. And Brighton do have something to play for. 8th place might still get a European spot for next year. And because João Pedro is out of the squad, because Ruter's not available, Danny Welbeck's definitely going to start. He's almost certainly going to be on penalties, and he's probably going to play as close to 90 minutes as possible. He may even be right now the differential forward to go for. Haaland if you've got the money, otherwise probably Welbeck. Evan-Nielsen's not a differential, neither's Ollie Watkins, neither's Visser, neither's Cunha really. And if Havertz starts against Southampton and we get confirmation, love him, right? Massive punt. Same with Gakpo against Palace. But if I'm guessing right now, I don't know if Havertz or Gakpo are going to start. I'm almost certain that Danny Welbeck will. So I quite like him as an option, especially if you're looking to sell Isak or someone like that. Or if you want to go the midfield route, you've got Minter or Gruder. I do like Mitoma, and his ownership's quite low, even though, you know, for most of the season, if you were looking at a Brighton midfielder, it would have been Mitoma. But his minutes haven't been great, and I think he is still carrying a bit of an injury. So I don't know if I would go there. Gruda, Minter, quite a close call. One will play off the right, one will play number 10. Minter's goal threat, looking at the numbers, is ever so slightly better, so I'd probably lean that way, but it's almost just flip a coin territory. Semenyo, I think, has to be the Bournemouth midfielder over Kluivert, just because of Kluivert's minutes the last couple of games. There's every chance Kluivert will start and play 60, 70 plus, but it's just not as much of a guarantee as it possibly was earlier on in the season. So for that reason, I would pick Semenyo. He's not a complete unknown, right? People are buying him, but I don't expect his ownership to be massive. And I think most players that didn't start for Liverpool last week will probably start this week. My theory is that Slot will probably go quite full strength. Again, we know McAllister has been given an extended break, so he's not going to play. But Diaz was benched last week. I think he comes back in, and he's done really well this season. He's one of the top scoring midfielders. Decent option against Palace. For Southampton away, Arsenal, I go Martinelli or Odegaard, like I mentioned earlier. Don't completely rule out Palmer or Haaland, but for most people, they're quite difficult to get to. And because they've been doing rubbish recently, most people don't want them. Otherwise, Calafiori is probably going to be more of a differential over Ben White. Although, for what it's worth, Ben White ownership is not going to completely skyrocket. And I think he's probably going to be more attacking from that right-back spot. So White is still where I would go. But if you want the ultimate low-owned Arsenal defender, it probably is Calafiori. Ultimately, Arsenal defenders overall are really high-owned. So the clean sheet's not going to be worth much to you anyway. You're really looking for that attacking output on top. So Ben White is probably where I would go. Or Kudus against Ipswich. If I'm looking at this list right now, I think Welbeck definitely for forwards. Semenyo definitely for midfielders are probably my favourite two. But one of the Brighton midfielders, or like a Diaz or a Martinelli, also look really good. I just think with Havertz, Kluivert and Gakpo in particular, the minutes are probably too risky. But if we get to Sunday and a leak comes out that Havertz is starting, then he's then probably the one to look at. But it's almost certain he would get subbed early. Like, that's one thing to consider. Havertz starts, he probably comes off 60, 65, maybe. Someone like Welbeck, who is also quite low owned, he's probably going to play 80 to 90 and he's going to have penalties. I'm almost sure of that. So there were only 6 attackers submitted for benching headaches this week. One of those players was Cole Palmer. I'm not sure if that was entirely serious, but I do appreciate that his returns have not been great recently. That being said, he would be at the top of the list. There's no way I would bench him, or at least there's not many players I would bench him for this week. I know he's been disappointing, but the minutes are going to be good because it's a huge game for Chelsea. His underlying numbers for 2 seasons now have been great, even if they haven't been brilliant in the last few weeks. He's on penalties. He has to be at the top of the list for me. Then Visser, Wolves away, great goal threat all season. Only 2 goals away from hitting 20, by the way, which is absolutely incredible. And Wolves away is not that tough of a fixture. It's not amazing, but it's not awful. So he's second. Then I've gone for Cunha. I think because of the Strand Larsen stuff, Cunha's probably going to start. I know he was benched last week and he's had an early substitution recently. The minutes are not as secure as they once were, but I think he's going to start against Brentford. That is why I've got him ahead of Morgan Rogers. If you want to go into Gameweek 38 with absolute security of minutes, you play Rogers ahead of Cunha. We all know Rogers is going to start and he's probably going to play 90 minutes. But if Cunha is in that 11... I quite like that against Brentford at home. And I'm not even saying that Brentford at home is miles better than Man United away, but I think it is slightly better. So that's why I've got Cunha there. But because I'm still slightly doubtful, I've got him behind Visser. If I knew Cunha was going to play 90 minutes, I'd probably have him second to Palmer. But there is some slight doubt there. And then you've got the Crystal Palace players who would be at the bottom for me. Even if they hadn't won the FA Cup and they were both going to start, it's still Liverpool away. And I'm expecting Liverpool to put up a bit of a fight this week. Final home game of the season, going to get the trophy, etc. So yeah, I think Eze and Sarr easily at the bottom. And Eze ahead of Sarr because he didn't start the last game and he's almost certainly going to start this one. This could be the game, by the way, Liverpool and Palace, where there's just a ton of goals. But I think there will be quite a few goals, but I think they're mostly going to be from Liverpool for obvious reasons. Defenders, Livramento right at the top. I think Everton at home is a great chance of a clean sheet this week. He can be fairly attacking as well. Wan-Bissaka against Ipswich away. I was very torn about whether to put him ahead of Vardiol. That's a really close call. Ipswich is the better fixture. Man City the better team. Vardiol, great goal threat. Wan-Bissaka not a slouch from open play, assists and stuff like that. It's really close. If you want to play Vardiol, just do it, because I won't argue about that. But I've put Wan-Bissaka second. Konate, I think, will start, but he has played 90 in the last 2. So if it was like Van Dijk and Kwanzaa, would that be a massive shock? not necessarily, but I think he will start. Palace at home. Ruben Dias, less goal threat than Vardy, that's why he's a bit lower down the list. I think as much as there's not many teams out there where I would bench Palmer, and I really like him this week, I don't think Chelsea are going to score a huge amount of goals, so I think it's still fine to play Milenkovic. Forest can make it difficult at home, and he's got goal threat. Then Konza against Man United away, and then Munoz against Liverpool away, because I just do not... I do not see a clean sheet. Even though I know how attacking he can be, it's not going to be as easy against that Liverpool team. The clean sheet's not just there. Is not there. I can't get my words out today. So he'd be at the bottom of the list for me. So another question that's quite common on the final game week is I'm X points behind in terms of the overall rank that I want to hit, or in terms of your mini league. How much should I chase in terms of differentials and punts and stuff like that? Now, this is not an exact science because, ultimately Salah could go and score a hat-trick, and it doesn't matter how different you go. If you back against Salah, you're probably not going to chase down where you want to be. But this is roughly how I would look at it. If you're 1 to 5 points behind, and in a mini league, you only really need like 1 to 2 players differential, and then just hope that they pay off. If it's overall rank, I would just try and get as many points as possible. Don't worry about differentials. And again, hope that it just pays off, because 1 to 5 points is nothing in a single game week. If you're a bit further behind, let's say 6 to 10 points, for the most part, it's still the same. A couple of players different, and hope, potentially, especially in a mini league, a differential captain, if you have a good idea of who your opponent's going to go for. So let's say they're absolutely going to choose Salah, then maybe you go for a Saka or Evan-Nielsen and try and get those points and hope that Salah has a bit of an off day. But even in that case, I think if you've got like 1 to 3 players different, that's enough to overturn 6 to 10 points. You've just got to hope that it goes your way, right? 11 to 15 points, you definitely need to go for a differential captain. So unless you think, like if it's overall rank, unless you think that Salah's absolutely nailed on to score that hat-trick, just go somewhere else, because captaining him is probably not going to help. And again, as many different players as possible. 16 to 20 points, you definitely need a differential captain, like no doubts about that. You might even be in the realms of going for someone that no one else is going to go for, and as many differential players as possible. And then 21 points plus, unfortunately, I have to give the bad news. It's probably done. I don't see many 21 point plus, differences being overturned in 1 week. Especially like 30 plus. Like I'd be very surprised. It has happened before, but I'd be very surprised. If you're in a mini league, you need to go for a differential captain, I think, that they don't own. So I think in that case, 21 points plus, it's not a case of you've both got Salah and Saka, let them go Salah, you go Saka. I think you go completely different and almost hope that some of those big hitting players just blank. Because at that point you are, that sounds like quite a desperate position to take, where you're hoping those players blank in good fixtures. But that's kind of what you've got to hope for when you're 21 plus behind. So differential captain they don't own. And obviously if it's for rank, same thing. Like, Evan-Nielsen's ownership is definitely going to go up quite a bit this week, but I don't see many people captaining him. He'd probably be the differential that I would look at over Salah or Saka for the final week if you're chasing rank. And obviously if it's mini league, go for differential players they don't own. Maybe if you really want to take it one step further, if you're even more points behind, even remove a player who's highly owned and just hope that they blank and bring someone in with hardly anyone owning them on that differential list I spoke about earlier. And please, if it's for a mini league specifically, go and look at your mini league. Because if they don't own Salah, for example, for whatever reason that might be, and you don't think they've got a good route to them, and they're probably not going to bring him in, all of a sudden that is probably the biggest differential. Even though for overall rank, Salah means nothing for the most part, he'll be the most captain player. For your mini league, that could be huge. So, as much as Game Week 38 and kind of the deadline stream is going to be full of differential and punt questions, if a mini league player, if someone in your mini league doesn't own a player, that player is by definition a massive differential. And if they're owned by everyone else in the grand scheme of FPL, it doesn't matter for your specific mini league. So I hope that makes sense. Good luck. I hope you chase down your rivals and have a good final game week. So I'm going to answer a couple of your more specific questions. So would you bring in another Arsenal defender for Saliba, or use the one free transfer on an attacker instead? Now, I know for a couple of weeks now I've said I personally don't want to make any defender transfers. I want to concentrate them on attackers. that was before my key defender for game week 38 got injured. Now there's more incentive to make that kind of move. And someone like Kirkes against Leicester at home or Ben White against Southampton away could be quite attacking, and they've got a decent prospect of getting a clean sheet as well. So if it makes sense for your team, absolutely move Saliba on. If you get a leak that Trent Alexander-Arnold starts, I've already mentioned that he's a huge differential as well. The only thing I would say is if it's a close call where you're not sure whether to change Saliba or you're not sure whether to make the attacking move instead, for the most part, as broad general advice, I'd probably make the attacking move instead. Because I think most of the time, that attacker is more likely to go and get you 8 to 10 points plus than the defender. But you might have an attack that's absolutely looking great with no issues whatsoever. Like if you're sat there with Salah, Saka, Semenyo, Bowen. Actually, let's scrap the Bournemouth midfielder. Let's say you've got Salah, Saka, and Burmo Bowen, which a lot of you will have. Then you've got like Watkins, Evan Nielsen, then another forward that's probably going to play and is a good option this week. You probably don't need an attacking change. So go and make the defender change instead. So it's going to depend on the team. Right? I hate to say that. I know it's boring to hear, but that is the case. If it's a close call, change the attacker. If it's not and your attack looks great, feel free to move Saliba on. So I'm trying to maintain top 10,000. Should I try and avoid taking hits at all costs? Now, for the most part, again, broad general advice here, I think most people should be looking to avoid hits, even if you're chasing. Because you're putting yourself 4 points down, and that has to pay off straight away. And a lot of the time, right, when you go throughout the season, people will justify hits by saying stuff like, this player is better this week, and they're going to score me more points over the next 6 weeks. That -4 will pay it off. You don't have that now. It has to pay itself off right now. So, for example, one of the questions I think came in said, you know, if Saka starts, should I do Palmer to Saka for a -4? I'm not sure I'm even going to do that move for free. I definitely wouldn't do it for a hit. I know Palmer's been bad, but for 1 week only, I'm not going to cost myself 4 points. So for the most part, I wouldn't take hits. There are some situations where I would consider it though. So for example, if you're on bench boost and you're stuck there with Saliba, who's now injured, I would personally take a -4 to get an attacking defender in and just hope that pays off. On bench boost, you want 15 playing players. That's the whole point in the chip. Also, there is maybe some more justification to take a hit if it's a high impact move that involves like captaincy or a lot of your budget. So as an example, and I don't think this is going to happen, right? But it's just an example. If we get to Sunday and a leak comes out that Saka is benched and you've got him and you've already used your transfers up and it would take a -4 to get rid of him, although you could argue that off the bench Saka could still get something, because he's so much money and you might have been considering captaining him, I probably would sell him for a hit. So let's say you've got Saka but not Salah and Saka is benched, then I would do Saka to Salah for a -4. That's a really big, impactful move because you can then go and captain Salah as well. But generally, for the most part, trying to maintain top 10k, trying to chase down 10 points, I just wouldn't take a hit unless that player is injured and you've got like a really rubbish option on the bench. Even in my case, for example, if I just go to my team, let's say this is the lineup I was going to go for and I'd already used my transfers and we found out that Nico Williams was injured and I've got Munoz off the bench. Even though I don't rate him as an option this week, I probably still wouldn't take a -4 to get rid of him. I would just play it and hope for the best. Because as much as, you know, when we don't go for the hit and it would have massively paid off, we always remember that. There's a lot of times when hits just don't pay off and we seem to forget about that. So for most people, don't take hits, but there are a couple of situations where I'd maybe do it. So this is a good follow-on question to the discussion we had earlier about chasing strategy. I'm leading in a mini league by 5 points. The main difference between my team and the chaser is he has Bowen and I don't. When things are this close, do I prioritise defending the lead and get Bowen, or maximise the upside and get someone else, perhaps a Bournemouth attacker? I almost think when it's anywhere between kind of 1 to maybe 10 points, certainly like 1 to 6 or 7, you almost just need to let the final game week take its course and not try and overthink it too much. Because one differential haul or one differential captain could be enough just to win the league because the points are so tight. So what I mean by that is, if you think Bowen is definitely better than a Bournemouth attacker, just get Bowen and just see what happens. Another thing to think about for those of you that in the lead in your mini leagues, by the way, lead and league, when you have to say them quickly together, is quite difficult to differentiate. You think it'd be easier to say, but I've had to record this a few times, is think about, if there's a specific player like this you're worried about, think about your other differential players. So let's say you and your opponent have got 2 to 3 differential players. If you think your differentials are better, then I would say just get Bowen and defend it. Don't give them Bowen, who could do really well. Let your other differentials fight it out. If you're looking at your team and their team, and you think I could get Bowen to defend, but then their team still looks better, maybe that in that scenario you go for the upside. So you go for that differential attacker to hope they do the business so that you keep the lead. Like I said earlier, there's not an exact science to this stuff. I think 1 to kind of 8, 9, 10 points, something like that. Maybe even just try and get the best players you can and just hope it works out, because that's not really much of a gap. If you've got the better differentials, defend. If you've got the worst differentials, attack a bit more. And if your lead is like 15 to 20 points plus, I would definitely block. If you're not worried about overall rank and stuff like that, definitely block players. If they've got Salah and you don't, and you've got an easy route to get to him that doesn't cost you any points, bring him in. Because that is a player that could damage your lead. Why let your opponent have that? So again, I said earlier, good luck if you're chasing. Also, good luck if you're defending. So I think I'm going to leave that video there. There's a ton of information included with the team news, different topics like captaincy, differentials, etc. Thoughts on my own team. Now we've had all the press conference information, I'll leave into a separate video tomorrow. Because the deadline is Sunday, we've got an extra day to put content out. So I'll do a video tomorrow talking about my own team. I'll also include a free hit draft in that video because loads of people, despite there not being that many people with free hit left, I'm getting a lot of questions about what a free hit team could look like. So I'll discuss that. And if you've got any questions about stuff that I've not covered in this video or previous videos this week, leave them in the comments below and I'll try and include any questions that I think need to be included in tomorrow's video as well. And then we'll have the deadline stream on Sunday. The deadline this week is 2:30 p.m. UK time on Sunday. So the stream will probably start at 12:30. Lastly, if you haven't already joined my league over on Sleeper, link in the description below. Otherwise, thank you for everything once again this season. Just in case I don't see you tomorrow or on the deadline stream. Will there be much content after the season? Probably not, but there will be a ton more once FPL kicks up for next season, as always. So please do hit that subscribe button, hit like if you've enjoyed it, and I'll catch you again tomorrow.